Welcome to another episode of the Prep Coach podcast. You might see if you're watching, Scotty is missing at the moment, but his monster is there. He'll be back in a second. He's just had to go move his car because you might get a parking ticket.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
But we need to get this potty started, so it's just MG and I right now, and we're going to get this started. Obviously, we're going to talk about Perth. We got some questions, which we'll go through in a second, specifically about divisions and who stand out and that kind of stuff. But how did you think the whole weekend went? Obviously, new venue. We hadn't seen it until the morning we rocked up. Was the first time we actually even seen the venue. How did you think it all went?
It was awesome. I was super keen to get an understanding as why the name Octagon was Octagon.
Octagon.
Like I couldn't quite grasp in my head the concept of what the stage in the theatre was going to be like. It's literally as an octagon, right? But how the stage was going to fit into that.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool. We didn't get to use all of the stage because it is so big. We didn't need to use all of the stage, but I think from an athlete perspective, having that much room on the stage is a big plus.
Yeah.
I liked how they had the seats. It was very, interactive in terms of the atmosphere. The quality of the show was amazing. I heard some people talking backstage. I heard two competitors talking backstage that didn't know I was there. And it was basically like, even though, they've been at bigger shows in the past, that the depth of the lineups was far better than they thought it was going to be. And that they did this show because they thought that they would potentially get a better placing. However, they're worried now that they're not going to place at all. That was a conversation I overheard.
The quality was incredible. And we'll go through the lineups in a second, but yeah, the quality, WA did not disappoint at all.
Yeah, I think I said it on the mic multiple times during the day about how good and deep the Perth lineups were, all the way through the day. And like as it got deeper and deeper, as the day got, further in, they just got better and better. And there were some phenomenal athletes on stage. We knew that about Perth. That's why we've been putting so much time and effort into Perth, is because we're fully aware of the quality that there is over there on that side of Australia. And they definitely showed up to the show on the weekend. And the feedback we got was obviously phenomenal about, the show, the way it was run, the things that we do, I suppose, that maybe are above and beyond, that people loved and appreciated. And we'll just keep doing those things every single time. But Perth, we love you as one of the fine gentlemen that I interviewed on. We might talk about that moment because it was a pretty special.
Yeah. Well, someone asked, were there any special moments? So we'll go through that in a second. But do you want to talk through the weekend, the timeline of it? Well, we'll be quick because we've got to go through some questions. But maybe we'll talk about just the timeline. We got there, we got settled into the hotel, and then we went out for dinner.
Yeah, we went to the amazing La Capanina in Scarborough, which phenomenal restaurant. And as all of our wonderful listeners know, our dear friend here, who's not sitting there right now, will be back in a minute, is a celiac. And we often eat in our hotel room because it's hard for, Scott to be confident in, what he's eating. And of course, he doesn't want that, fear of the next day of, not feeling his best and having to run to the bathroom. So we typically in our hotel room, we're happy with that. However, on this occasion, our great celiac friend over there was kind of a little bit in heaven, and I'm sure he can speak to it in just a moment. But we did find a place where the food is not only incredible, but everything is very
welcome.
Everything's based. I'm talking about you and your.
That's a really steep hill.
Your good times. But yeah, we did eat at La Capanina in Scarborough on the Friday night. It was freaking phenomenal. I think I had about 400 courses. We were there with, Rich was there, Kat was there, Taylor was there, and it was just
Fit Focus crew was there.
It was just an awesome night. Nice for the night before the show, just to kind of spend some time together, not running around psychotic on show day, which is what happens to us normally. And for Scott to actually be able to eat at a restaurant with confidence, being a celiac, and of course for me to have 47 serves of vanilla ice cream, which was again, one of the highlights of the weekend as well. But then the Saturday went back to the hotel room. Friday night, we continued to make up all the athlete packs and stuff before we went to bed. So it was a late one, and we were up again early. Scotty and I actually went for a very brisk AM morning run. We'll call it a run because Caitlin, of course, from Competitive Edge, who's one of our judges, said she'd be up for a run
at 3:30.
At 3:30. Well, she probably does get up at 3:30. She's a busy human being. But Scotty and I think the words you use, Scott, is imagine a run but just dialed right back. That's probably what we did on the Saturday morning. It was freaking amazing. Kings Park, right? Kings Park.
Yeah, Kings Park.
Yeah. So it was. The sun hadn't quite come up yet, but it would have been between 16 and 17 degrees.
Nice, man.
Nice fresh morning. We did a really, brisk walk through the darkness. There was one poor girl running with her flashlight on, and me and Scott are walking as fast as we can with our flashlights on, and I think she did shit herself a little bit. And then Scott's like, "You can follow us. You're allowed to walk behind us for safety."
Well, more just because we're going through some shrubland, and I didn't. She looked. Oh, I don't know if I want to go in there, which is smart because if you're a female at 5 a.m. and you're running through there's lots of weirdos out there. So I was like, we're gonna walk in front if you want to just follow, and
You're not weird, yeah.
Well, she doesn't know that, but I mean, I'm probably a little strange, but that's. But it was a great way to kick the day off, and then we got to the venue, got everything set up. Registrations were a dream, and the show itself was phenomenal. We'll get into the show specifically, but on the timeline, we were supposed to fly out at about 6 o'clock, but the show was
earlier,
big, and we weren't able to make that flight.
Yeah.
So we had to push it back to the red-eye midnight flight, which we did on the flight. Scotty was organising backstage. If any of the Perth competitors were wondering why Scott's sitting at his laptop for an hour, lots of changes had to be made to flights, to accommodation. We had to switch airlines. And we almost missed the fucking midnight flight.
I can't believe.
We almost missed the midnight flight.
I was telling Stewie that story yesterday. I was like, I'm never ever getting that flight ever again.
I don't understand. So, we obviously didn't expect the show to be as big as what it was. So when we booked those flights, we thought, we're probably going to be done by then. Now, granted, I think we actually finished the show 15 minutes after what we expected. So we were running on time, but
just couldn't take the risk.
We just couldn't take the risk that we weren't going to be able to help pack up or, schmooze with some people afterwards, and we had to just cut and run. So we're like, nah, you know what? We're going to delay our flight. The next one out was midnight Jetstar. So that meant that we were able to pack down slowly, talk to people, go out for dinner with a lot of people as well. We thought we had all the time in the fucking world.
And then, I was literally, and I'm like, you guys need to stop talking. We need to fucking go now.
We were flying to the airport. We thought we had to drop the car off in one location, which was maybe 5-10 minutes away from the airport. We get there, we dump the car, we're wheeling all our bags to the little guy that's in the room, and he's like, nah, you've got to go and dump it over there.
Well, no, that's where we were supposed to dump it, but he's like, the next shuttle's 40 minutes.
Oh, that's right.
So we're like, we've only got 7, man.
Yeah.
So
check-in closes 40 minutes before the flight, and at this stage, we
were very close. And then
we had about 13 minutes. So we MG
flying,
driving on the wrong side of the road. It was.
We got to we dumped the car at Hertz or whatever it was. I think he literally just threw them the keys over the counter, and we just started running. And we got 7 minutes till check-in closed.
I got there with 4 minutes to spare at check-in, and I was like, she's like, you made it. And I was like, just wait, there's more coming. You guys are like in distance, because I took off out in front, and we had to go past the first terminal to the Jetstar terminal, because we normally fly Virgin. And MG's like, oh, we meant to go up there, and I was like, nah, just keep going.
We got there. So we had all the time in the world, but we still just got to the flight. And then that was a red eye. Most of us cannot sleep on the plane.
Yeah, that flight sucked major.
Yeah.
Bali's.
Yeah. And then it
wasn't nice.
And it was
Scorpo Bali.
Yeah, it
was Mother's Day the next day, and we all had something on in the morning. So
yeah. And I think I messaged you boys later that afternoon because, I want to say it's not me or Talia's fault that, I had to be away for work, and then I had to miss a flight, and I had to rock up at 7 a.m. on no sleep. So you try and walk in the door and be like, I'm tired, but let's go. What's today on? But there's only so much that you can fake. But it took me right up until yesterday to kind of feel like I was
back to normal,
back to a human again. Yeah. It was a battle.
It was all worth it. I think delaying that flight, having that time to pack down, talk to everyone, and have dinner afterwards, I think it was definitely worth it. But maybe we'll work out the logistics a little bit better next time with how we structure the show on the day we do the show on. We got some questions about the athletes themselves. One of them was, what was one of the most memorable moments of the day? So I know you had one of your most favourite moments.
Yeah, I suppose my memorable moments are always going to be a little bit different because I, get to talk to the athletes, before they go on, after they're off, and often interview the overall winners. I think this season we've had some pretty awesome family moments. I've spoken on the app a few times about, bringing up mums and dads and stuff, and some heartfelt moments. But this was kind of like a heartfelt moment, but the whole crowd was just loving it. So our amazing wellness winner, her name's Freya Holloway. She's a phenomenal athlete as well. She's from Venezuela, and she brought her parents up on stage who, don't really speak English. Mum didn't speak English. So I was interviewing Freya and asking Freya to then ask mum and dad the questions for them to then translate back so that I could tell the crowd. And I could just see how proud her dad was from Venezuela. And you could just see his confidence building, even though maybe his English wasn't great, but because of what his daughter had just achieved, he was just so proud. I could see it in his eyes. This burst of confidence came over him that he just took the mic off me. Spoke the best, right? And if anyone hasn't seen it, I'll get it. I'll see if Fit Focus can pop it up. But basically, grabs the mic. He said, "I love everybody in this building, and I love Australia." And it was just fun. And the whole crowd was just going absolutely bonkers. Stewie was bawling his eyes out. And I said, at that moment, this is one of those times when bodybuilding has given everybody in this room something special. Not just him, not just Freya who won, but everybody in that room, I promise you, had a smile on their faces. Like everyone had a smile. Some people were standing up cheering. And it was almost like that was his moment, just as much as it was Freya's moment. It was the dad's moment. It's like, my little girl just won the title, and I'm in this new country, and look, it's home now. It's home. And that's amazing. Yeah. That's so it was pretty special. I think we'll find it, and we will post it up. Whether we do it on NBA, we'll do it on the podcast. But yeah, it's definitely a moment where I sort of had hair standing up on my arm, and I was like, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah. For me, like, that was a great moment. For me, I actually liked how backstage, all the competitors, the camaraderie was so good. Like, girls were coming off stage, and the ones that were lined up saying, "Well done, you looked amazing." Like, I love seeing that, because even though they're competing against each other, they're all in this together, right? They've all gone through the same struggles and the same battles. So no matter what happens on stage, everyone is just so proud of each other. And we did have a lot of first timers, and a lot of also first time or kind of new coaches as well. So I just love seeing those coaches that have never had a winner or never had their client win anything or anything, just being so proud and so happy of their athletes, and also getting that in return as well. So
yeah,
that were kind of my...
Yeah, that was like Caitlin's coach.
Yeah.
Caitlin, who won swimsuit, amazing athlete. That was her coach's first prep athlete.
Yeah. It was great.
What a great moment.
Yeah, it was great. How about you? Had any standouts or any...
Yeah, similar. I think just watching a lot of the girls come off and, as you said, congratulate each other. I think just in the early days, there's always been an element of almost like standoffishness in comps, and we've seen it when you first come onto the scene. But I feel like it's almost the norm at all of our shows that we have. And that's one of the common bits of feedback that we get, just how like warm and at ease everyone is. It's almost like a calm amongst everyone. There's not that competitiveness against, this person or that person. Everyone's, pretty mellow. But when Freya's dad came backstage, and I was like, "Oh, do you want me to take a photo for Jono because he'll be wrapped?" And he said, "I love you, man." And he had the crown above his head. And he goes the same thing. He goes, "I love Australia. I love Australia."
Oh, that's the best.
And just seeing how happy she was to see her dad so happy. Man. But as a father, I could just see it in him. He was just so like eternally proud of what it's almost like he's sacrificed so much for them to come here and to see her thriving.
For sure.
I think there's probably just, as a father, there's just nothing better. So that was pretty cool too.
That's cool. That's amazing
to see. The other thing that really just blew me away a bit, and I find it almost strange that when we go to different states and someone comes up to you and goes, "Hey Scotty, I know your voice. It's so weird hearing you speak." And at first I'm a little bit like, "Oh, really?" As if like maybe you know someone I know. And she's like, "Yeah, because I'm the potty."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, okay, no way." Like you listen to that, but just to get that multiple times throughout the day, how many people in all of these states that actually do listen to us? It just, like, as we always say, we started out just wanting to chat bodybuilding, chat shop, talk about prep, give back to the industry a little bit, and then to know that it does reach and to get feedback that it makes such a difference to their journey, to their process, to their, knowledge acquisition, things like that, I think is, it's still, for me, it's a little bit like, oh, wow, you just don't really realize that we have that reach, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely. The other questions that we got were, standout athletes. Honestly, all of them were, if you think about stuff from the start, the bodybuilder, the classic guy, he was shredded, he was awesome.
Yeah, he was really good.
And then you got Caleb, who did fitness and physique, lives in Bali, but did the Melbourne show, came back better.
Yeah,
He looked
pretty good.
awesome, right?
I was backstage with him when he was pumping up.
Yeah, so
And he was looking awesome.
it looked incredible. Then you had the two figure athletes. They were amazing and shredded too. The international and the figure, they were absolutely amazing. And I hope that they come to nationals because they were absolutely incredible. And then you move into the second show with the females, bikini athlete, absolutely amazing. I think she was a first time competitor as well.
Shayla, yeah.
Yeah.
She was awesome.
And then you had obviously
fitness.
Yeah,
which fitness, like that, we'll say that top two, because it was Alicia and is it Tegan?
Yes.
She was also dynamite, man. She's an absolute weapon too. Both of them, so much muscle, different looks completely, but she impressed me a lot as well. I hope she also continues her season. But yeah, the quality in fitness and sports was
fitness and
phenomenal.
Sports this is like a Perth thing. The sports lineup at the end of the day, same as last season, was just ridiculous, and it was exactly the same.
Nine girls in the open in the at 6 o'clock.
It's crazy. And then wellness, Freya, amazing.
She was elite, yeah.
And then swimsuit, Caitlin, amazing. So
Caitlin Ineson.
That swimsuit you had Tessa, Tegan, and I thought
sports.
This is in sports
or fitness,
yeah. For sports, that was a lineup, and I thought similar to you. I watched that fitness division, and I thought Tegan was lethal. And even more impressive in the flesh. She's I hope she does come to national. For me, she was super impressive. But you had her, Tessa, you had Alicia, who actually won the fitness division, and Freya in that sports lineup. And we were actually sat next to Rich, and we were just like, fucking hell, look at this lineup.
Yeah. I think when I interviewed Alicia after she won fitness, I mentioned that on the stage that while I was watching her pump up, she was like in what I would she was in like a Scotty Morrell pump up zone, like talking to herself, like getting fired up and like, this is what you fucking do. Like, and that was getting me. I wanted to walk out on the stage. And obviously she had a ton of muscle as well. So yeah, the quality in Perth was phenomenal. All the overall winners were standouts. And they should all be very, very proud. And that's what we expected. And that's why I said, Scotty, before you came on, like that's why a lot of time's been put into Perth, because we know the quality of the athletes across there. Hopefully now they've experienced, what you get when you step on an NBA stage and what the production is like. And I hope that starts to filter through for the rest of the year. No doubt it will.
Yep.
So
the other one we had, which was very specific, was what was the main difference between the bikini overall and the swimsuit overall? I think the bikini overall just had more muscle density and conditioning, which is what you would expect it to be the separation between those two categories.
Yeah, and obviously Caitlin, who is a lot taller, and in that swimsuit, her structure for that was just bang on the money. Tiny bit softer than Shayla was for bikini, which makes perfect sense. I think that was very easily explainable. Did I tell you guys the funny story about Caitlin and what I did with her name?
No.
Yeah, so Caitlin, if you look at it, it's Ineson, right?
Yeah.
So it's Ineson, but you can understand how people might accidentally pronounce it innocent.
Innocent.
But I spoke to her and I was like, I'm going to get this right. So I was getting it right all day. Life Division number 7, I think Stu might have just announced it the wrong way. So I sent you over and I said, I was just reminding that it's that way. And then I call her out the next time, and all day I've got it bang on, and I call her Caitlin. I grabbed the mic. She laughed at me, but I grabbed the mic and I just whacked myself in the head like, get the harder one right, but fucking can't even get the first set correct. At that point of the day, I was like, and then I'm backstage, people see me walking around, I'm like, Caitlin MG, are you serious? I was ropeable to myself.
Just like, just get the shovel.
I was ropeable.
Look, you do very well with those names. I'm the worst. I couldn't do what you do.
There was a few doozies, but I'll try and take the time to get it right.
He's a linguist.
He is. All right.
You call me
a linguist.
No.
A master of the English lexicon.
He said that to me just.
Yeah, everyone else.
Scotty does.
No, I said you're a gladiator.
Yeah, so Scotty does this thing, and someone saw it on the weekend and asked me, what did Scotty say to you? But Scotty basically pulls me aside, and you guys might be watching out for this now that you know, and just like puts me up against a wall and just gives me like you're about to go out to war. as an MC. Like,
Speech.
he
Just
gives
to pump him up.
And,
And
like,
you should see him. He
it's-
almost wants to rip his shirt off.
like it's intense, but it's exactly what I need. Maybe after nationals, we'll get Scott to give everybody an explanation. Until then, we're going to keep what he says to me under wraps. It's nothing like
I've actually got something I've been thinking about, almost like a little spiel that I'm going to give you, that I put some deep thought in, that I'm going to read out. I'm going to tell you. I'll have it off by verse that I'm going to give to you before you go out.
Can I film it?
To give you an understanding of like how intense we go. Somebody saw it but didn't know what we were saying and came over to me and said, "I wish I had a friend that could do that for me." Like, yeah,
That's cool.
So
that's awesome. Okay, I'm going to film it.
He does in this speech. They're always different, but in this one on the weekend at Perth, one of the things he said is like, "You are a gladiator," but that's just one very small part of it. But that gives you a bit of an idea as to like,
behind the microphone. You are a gladiator.
Yeah, that's
a master of the English lexicon.
Yeah,
everyone's here to see you. There's also a bodybuilding show going on, but today's your day.
I love it. You want one now, don't you?
I do want one.
Yes, I do. You want one?
What's he going to say? You are the best at putting lollies on the table.
You tap those walls like nobody else can. Those toilet seats, there's no way any urine can get on those.
Oh god. Okay.
So he does though. He raps with precision. He's actually a method.
Yeah. Very good.
So precise that
And Scotty tells me we cannot let any tan touch these seats. We're going to get reamed by the
man. We had these showers there. Did you tell me what we did with that? So we literally.
It looked like somebody was murdered in there. And then when I didn't see it, and then when you guys are doing the athlete briefings, Scott's like, now when you walk into the bathrooms and you said that we've taped the showers, it's not like a Dexter seat. It's you really tape the fuck out of those.
Yeah. We didn't want to answer you.
I was getting in.
Yeah.
No.
Are we ready for some questions?
Haven't we been going for 25 minutes? Let's do it.
This is going to be about winter season, which is obviously straight after. I think we worked out it's our last show to our next first show is 7 weeks, so it's not a long time. So this one asks, I've wrapped up my season early. I wanted to go to Season A Nationals, but now I'm thinking of bridging into Season B. I was told from my feedback that I need to be more conditioned. What would be the best way to approach the plan? So maybe you want to talk about it a bit, Scotty.
So they've just wrapped their season?
They wrapped their season up earlier than what they expected. They were going to go to Nationals, which is obviously the end of May. But they decided to wrap it up and push for and bridge between this season to Season B mid-year.
Yeah, so
now, I don't know if if it could be from swimsuit to bodybuilding. I don't know. So it's a bit hard to understand, but maybe you want to talk about both.
If you work off timelines from when our national finishes to when the first show is, there's 7 weeks.
Yep.
And I'm guessing if they've put it on hold, they're not just going to do one show. They're probably going to go all the way to the nationals, which is it's the 12th, then the 20th, and then the 3rd. Yep. So there's a 4-week gap. So essentially 11 weeks out from the nationals, from national to national. And in essence, from now, you're 12 weeks and change out from where you would need to be. So if your feedback was obviously that you need to get sharper, assuming that you've reversed out of where you are, you're probably in a pretty good spot, because you're probably around, you're approaching that, which for most coaches, that 10-week out checkpoint, where for me, I want to be, maybe just chasing refinement that last maybe 1.5 to 2 kilograms to really slow things down, take your time. Again, context is important here, because it's hard to know, will you weigh out if it's bodybuilding and you're told that you need to lose 8 kilos, then you're straight back in the trenches. But if you're someone who was decent, but maybe you've only got 3 or 4 more kilos to go, you just would probably want to bear in mind that peak week, you're going to lose a week. So if you're talking and say that this week's also a write-off, so now in essence, you've got 8 weeks to your first show. Sorry, 7 weeks if we're writing that off, to be able to make the improvements that you need to make. So you would probably look at, and again, assessing what your amount of body weight / body fat that you need to lose, and then put a diet that is in that's going to be conducive to facilitate that. But I think if you were in, let's just say that they're in more of a muscular category, they're going, if it's female, it's a fitness or figure, or if it's any of the men's divisions, then absolutely you could make the winter series happen. There's no reason why you couldn't. But again, I wouldn't think, I've got more time and I can just take my time to an extent. If you've been told that you need to be sharper and that's why you've called quits on your season, then if you're thinking maybe it's 3 or 4 weeks, and in reality you probably need more like 7 or 8. So in which case, again, I'm sure your coach has a plan, but for me, the goal would be you need to get straight back in the trenches. Maybe use this week to have 1 or 2 off-plan meals, come up for air, freshen yourself up psychologically, and then accept that over these next 8 weeks, if you will, you really need to dig. And the first 4 weeks are going to be super important to get off a large chunk of that fat mass that needs to come. And then hopefully you can modulate your rate of loss so that as you get closer, the magnitude of fat loss is less so that you can spend more time potentially, refeeding at estimated maintenance so that you can protect fat-free mass. Because we know that when you are very lean, the risk of degrading, muscle tissue is a lot higher. And so that's the art of coaching. And that's, as an athlete, knowing when to push and when to pull. So I think there's going to be a lot more people. We even had a few people in Perth asking, do you reckon it's doable to do that? And it absolutely is. I think out of all of the seasons, this is probably the easier one to bridge, because if you are, say that you did nationals and you're placing second or third, maybe you're 2 kilos off where you need to be. And then in essence, you've got 6 weeks if you take out the peak week. So if you're a couple of kilos off, that's literally the perfect timeline that you need to make that change, to get sharper, and to potentially, maybe it means that you made a mistake on your peak as well. You can also look to refine that. But 6 weeks will go like that. Like that first show, which is in the Gold Coast on the 12th, you think about after Nationals is done, I think it's ICN Nationals, isn't it?
Yep.
The week after, which is June. And then you've literally got 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I know.
So
Crazy.
it's going to go really, really quickly. And I think for a lot of athletes, I don't have anyone that's on that cusp, but if I had someone who wasn't quite ready, I would be more inclined to maybe say, let's just hold off and just literally plan for nationals.
Yeah.
And we've had some of the coaches that we mentor who have had athletes that were meant to do season A, that we have had them push their athletes to season B, so that they can make sure that they come in, Mickey Mouse for that one.
So what if someone has wrapped up their season and they're 2 weeks into their reverse to recovery?
Mm-hmm.
Would you even say that's put them in a bit of a better position? Because by then they've probably washed off a bunch of fatigue. They feel a little bit fresher, and they're actually, okay, cool. Well, I've got 7 weeks or 6 weeks, whatever it is, and I do need to get leaner, and I feel nice and fresh now. I've gotten a little bit of socializing out of my system.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to go again.
Yeah, for sure. It can almost be like that extended diet break, if you will, where, maybe you were just fading towards the end. Like we said, you've come up for air, you're fresh enough for 2 weeks, and hopefully you've managed your nutritional variables so that rate of loss is not crazy through the roof. And if you're still within striking distance, in a lot of ways, it puts you in a better position.
Yeah. I know, obviously, the year of COVID kind of taught us, but also I've bridged someone between the 2 seasons last year, and I found that 2-3 weeks post a comp where you can do a diet break, bring food up, whatever you want to call it, actually helps them so much for if you do extend their season for whatever reason. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I can relate to that COVID year, because I was, my prep was, I think, 42 or 44 weeks. But I think when you are at 100%, even if you are really, really close, living in that condition is hard physiologically, more towards the end of the day. The first half of the day, it's not too bad. But being able to put food back in and sustain that, you have to be the right type of person, but it absolutely is sustainable when you have goalposts in mind. And obviously COVID was a bit of an exception, because it was going to be in October, then it was November, and then December. But it showed all of us, and it definitely showed me, the human body is capable of a lot, but also your perception of what you think, like, healed is at this rate. And then if you take 8 weeks further, and even though there's not really any change in body weight, but the look can also change drastically as well. So even those that are maybe pretty close to on the money now, let's say that you have someone who just misses out on a card at nationals, as a coach, and I've got someone who's doing the national show, if he does miss out, it will absolutely be a conversation for us. Let's come up for 2 weeks. Let's freshen up a little bit. We'll regain maybe 2.5 kilos quickly within that first 7 to 10 days. Physiologically, you'll feel a little bit better. Yeah. And then we're going to get straight back in the trenches, and we're going to dig hard for those last 5 weeks. And then let's run it back again. And let's be honest, you only really need to get to that first show, because back-to-back peak weeks, people seem to fear them. Even some of the people on the weekend, like, oh, I don't want to have too many back-to-back peak weeks. And I was like, why? Like, oh, isn't it meant to be bad? I'm like, why? No. It's, as an athlete, it's amazing, because you feel your Thursday, Friday, Saturday cruisy as. You feel amazing. You're running off the high from the Saturday. You train Sunday. You still feel pretty good on a Monday. Tuesday, you start to feel a little bit crappier. Wednesday's probably either a depletion or it's day one of repletion, and then you're going like that, and then you're cruising back into the show again. And it's literally rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. As a coach, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
You literally wash off the look and then you go again. So I think if you can get to that first show, the Gold Coast one, the 12th, and then whether you do Sydney, if it was me or my athlete, I'd make them go again, or I'd encourage them to, because it just continues to cruise your week. It's easier, week off, and then it's nationals and you get to have a crack at a pro card again.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm anticipating there'll be a few people who will play that route.
Yep.
It's just, I guess, if the coaches have the thought process behind them to how you periodize that. Because you do have to be a little bit careful, especially if you've got someone that is pretty bang on at the moment, but they just fell short.
Mm-hmm.
But they're definitely things that people will need to think about. And there'll be an element of trial and error, what works, what doesn't. But I don't think it would be that difficult. No, like I wouldn't be stressing about it if I was an athlete, and as a coach, definitely not.
Yeah. What do you think, MG? Anything on that?
Yeah, the only other thing to add is having just done a couple of shows, no doubt, your motivation levels should be through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got that out of the system. If it was your first season and you just missed out, the nerves are now gone. And nothing like, competing and just missing out to fuel yourself in terms of stepping into the gym and wanting to push a little bit harder, knowing that, if you were second or third, that those people might not be there again, and you've got 8-10 weeks to get better. Kind of hard to not do it.
I wish it was available when I did my show, because remember how at the end my body was just gassed out? I reckon if I had a couple of weeks to come up, I probably could have went again.
Yep.
If I had a show in 7 weeks' time or whatever that may be. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. While we're talking about this, can you explain why putting on weight rapidly in a reverse is detrimental to health? Is it true in increasing your fat cells and making it harder to shred in the future?
Well, if you regain too quickly, there's refeeding syndrome, and you could obviously end up in the hospital, which results in massive amounts of fluid retention, which is not great. But when you're saying gaining rapid amount, and there's a difference between the reverse and the recovery. So in the recovery phase, there's some athletes that will gain 4 or 5 kilos in a week, and they need that just to purely, that is quite quick, like 3 to 4 for most of my guys is probably around about normal. And then from there, that rate of loss modulates. But, and this is generalizing, most guys are pretty much like there's a set point. They need to get to there, and then don't really care about food anymore, not phased, don't care how I look, just want to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it is. But for females, we're seeing more and more with the case study, scientific literature, that because there's not a lot of this, and it's really hard to control for it, but a lot of them are female figure competitors, and we're seeing that those that do regain acute fat mass a little bit quicker tend to be better off longitudinally, and then from a physiological perspective return to baseline a lot quicker, which again as a female makes a lot more sense. So this person's asking, is that dangerous?
Well, I think what they're saying is there something in terms of a process that happens in the body where if you grow the fat cells too quickly, it becomes detrimental in years to come, making it harder to lose that same fat?
Yeah, if you get too fat too fast. Yeah.
There is, I'm pretty sure I know where they're referring to. There is some research that had came out around that space where regaining too quickly, I think Lane actually might have been one of the people talking about it, that can cause you to then find it more challenging to be able to lose weight again at a later stage. I think if you're someone that is regaining really, really quickly and you don't have control, I would be less concerned about that being an issue and more concerned with the behavioral component of it. So with hedonic eating and your relationship with food, you could regain it slower, but if you still have those same habitual tendencies, you're always going to be in the same position. So it's more addressing, and I think understanding that physiologically food-seeking behaviors are very, very normal when you're in a prolonged period of energy deprivation, and physiologically when you're a lot leaner than what your body is designed to be. Again, to summarize it, the body on every level, physiology on every level, always wants to return back to homeostasis. It wants to get back to baseline. So if you have someone who's like, I'm inside out, I'm going to reverse my food back up to 3,500 calories and I'm still going to stay shredded, striated glutes, aesthetic AF, even though your food might be there and whatever. At some point, your body will tip you over and say, I've just had enough of it. There's some people that can do that for 6 months, 8 months, but eventually that will happen, and it will start to get a hold of you. And the longer that you're in that state, in my experience, the harder it is for a lot of athletes to let go of that.
Makes complete sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Peak week, and I'm under immense stress at the moment with family issues. My anxiety is sky high. Would you recommend competing on the weekend?
It's just tough.
Yeah.
Like again, stress around comp is not ideal. Like as coaches, often, part of our job, and a lot of great coaches are great at helping their clients manage stress without being psychologists. But is it ideal to have stress around a comp week not relating to what you're doing on the stage? It's not. But again, it just depends what it is, man. Like, is competing going to help you to get through this period? Is it a nice distraction? Is it something for yourself that's, making what else is going on not seem as bad? Or is everything you're trying to fit in around this, as in all your training, all your nutrition, and having to deal with this getting too much? And maybe competing isn't the right thing. But there's just, so many things to consider. Ultimately, your mental health should come before anything.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling like the show is causing you too much stress alongside what you're doing, then maybe you and your coach should have a conversation as to whether it is the right thing to do. There's always going to be shows. Maybe you could bridge and do nationals in winter in a few weeks when, things are better or they've sorted themselves out. But have a look. Is this directly affecting your week? Is it going to affect your ability to adhere to your plan, tick all your boxes, and do everything that you need on a peak week? Are you going to be able to reduce stress as the week goes on whilst reducing expenditure? Are you going to be able to make all your appointments with all this stuff that's going on? Yeah. If you can do all of that and you think that the comp is helping you mentally get through this, do it.
Anything you want to add on that? I think covered it. Yeah. How long would you say a reverse is mandatory for after you finish your last comp on the 1st of June? I'm leaving for Europe on the 8th of August, so that's 8 weeks. Is it a good amount of time to make decent changes? I'm very anxious about my reverse diet.
So they've got an 8-week reverse period.
I'm in a bikini division.
Okay. That was the next
So
question.
I'm assuming that they mean they want to be in a good position
in 8 weeks post the last show.
In 8 weeks, like I don't know. Do you want a bikini bod for 8 weeks, or you just want to reverse and recover from your show?
Reverse and recover is what it sounds like.
It's what it sounds like, and yeah, that's enough time to reverse, recover, probably go to Europe, not feel super food focused, and can go there, enjoy your holiday, not really worried about any detrimental effects. 8 weeks is a pretty good amount of time, especially for a bikini athlete.
Yeah, I think you're far better off doing that than trying to keep the bikini body for 8 weeks to Europe, because you're going to run into some of the issues we just spoke about before.
Yeah.
So, 8 weeks is actually a great amount of time. I'd hate it to be 8 days. And how many competitors finish a show and go overseas 3 days later? And
I know.
As coaches, that's something that, we definitely get nervous about when people book. Again, it is dependent on the athlete. Some people are absolutely fine, but, booking a big overseas trip 2 days after your comp where you're basically going to go away and start reintroducing all these foods and binge drinking is not a great recipe for success. I mean, I've never seen it end well.
Yeah, not great. Next one. What is an underrated back exercise? Underrated back exercise. Is there something that you do yourself or you give to clients that is not very popular, other people don't do, and it's underrated?
I think what's more underrated with back training or pull training, if you will, is people's understanding of where they're depositing stress. The amount of times when I look at video analysis on athletes that I first start working with, and I'll have a look at their pulling movements, not understanding the lats line of pull. For example, the lats line of pull is directly in line with the midline. So if I'm doing a pull down and I'm staying within line of the midline versus if my elbow's going back, not to say that it's wrong or that it's bad, but where you're depositing stress is different. And I think when you understand the goal of any exercise is to deposit stress to the targeted tissue. So which specific tissue we're trying to target. So if I'm doing a pronated row and I'm in this position here and I'm rowing back and I'm retracting and squeezing versus that movement, I've got a row up there that you could use. But also if I go with a neutral grip, and again, I use my forearm onto the pad and I elongate through here so that I can get more length through the lat, and I drag my elbow and squeeze to my hip, then obviously I can bias the lat. So one of the biggest things that I teach everyone when we're looking at biomechanics and of a certain exercise, especially with pulling, is the flight path of the elbow. So where your elbow travels is ultimately going to determine where you deposit stress. So if you're looking at your lat pull downs and you're like, oh, do I really hit my lats? And even though you may have some good proprioception through your lats, if your elbows are going, and you can do a lat pull down where it's row based, or you could do it where it's a proper lower lat base. So if I'm pulling down and I'm staying within that line of pull, then I know I'm in a good spot. But if I'm doing a pull down and I'm drifting forward and then leaning back, same thing. And that's another thing you see a lot of people when they do the lat pull downs, they push their head through thinking that you get a better stretch. But if you actually want to lengthen the lats more, don't just, and this is a cue that I give athletes, don't just think about your reach up and then reach forward to lengthen the lats in a further position. And that's why Kassem's iliac pull down's got so much traction. He has people reaching out and then forward, when in reality, it's just understanding anatomy and obviously the role of each specific muscle. So I think if you really want to summarize it and just dilute it so that it's absorbable for everyone that listens to this, look at the flight path of your elbow, and where your elbow travels is where you're depositing stress. And if your elbow's moving at a rate that you don't want it to move at, or it's moving in a direction you want it to move at, then you need to pivot that so that you are able to bias that particular muscle.
And that's why, man, for me, exactly what you said. You think about the lat just as one example. That's why, for me, a straight arm push down or pull down, if you think about the way that the lat moves, is maybe my greatest mind-muscle connection exercise for the lat. And people think that you've got to go way up here. And like you said, how we do it, it's the range of motion doesn't need to be massive. But again, it's just moving in conjunction with the lats. And I think one of the things that you said really, really early on, years and years ago, was like elbows into armpits.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about the lat, it's literally moving in that exact way. So, so there's a good cue.
Yeah, I think,
and that exercise is a primer prior to doing vertical pulling, and that's why most of my athletes will be like, oh, that's why he gives me a straight arm pull down or a rope pull down, to get some blood into that muscle and to create that that muscle mind connection before you go on to other movements. I think priming exercises are drastically underrated with anything that you do.
I think underrated back exercises are the single arm ones, because when you're talking about that kind of position that you're trying to get into, it's difficult on a machine doing it bilaterally, like with two hands. You normally have to do it unilaterally if you're doing the chasm one, or even if you do anything on a machine, like when you sit on the chest supported row, and you can't do that with two arms. It's pretty hard. So I think underrated is single arm movements for
I'll always virtually kick off with a straight arm pull and individual arms on that row there.
Yeah.
One at a time. That'll be my first.
I do my straight arm pulls single arm.
Yeah, you can do them as well. And they actually work. I don't know if you've ever done them with a cuff, but sometimes with a cuff as well.
Oh, yeah,
just
cuff,
stick your hand in the cuff with your forearm. That might actually feel.
I use the single rope attachment. You can get the the tricep rope is a double. You can get the single one, and you can just do it like that. Yeah,
for sure.
When you laugh.
Oh, just watching you. I don't know why you needed to grab it like that. I'm sure that's what you're used to.
That's why he's got
it's a factory. All right.
Wow, it's very nice.
Do you want to? Why did you bring that up, John?
The Borat. Oh, because at the dinner in Perth, how can I say? I get a bit crazy. I just have fun at the table, and I love to talk like Borat sometimes. And some of the crew that we were with were challenging me to get Borat into my emceeing somehow during the day if I found it appropriate. Maybe the listeners, if you were at a bodybuilding show, the MC ripped out some Borat, would that make you smile, or would you think that that's inappropriate?
I think the funniest was when you said, when someone gets the award.
Yeah, it's like standing up and somebody gets presented with the overall, holds it above their heads, like, you'll never get this, you'll never get it. I had some other ones, but I just thought, no, they're not appropriate, so I'm not going to go there.
No. Yeah.
Is it a thing now, whenever you guys are warming the mic up to do a sound check, you're doing, like, I know Stewie, he's doing some really funny, weird stuff.
No, he does. He announces you guys as winners, or I just want to hear that my voice comes out clear.
Yeah.
Stewie takes it to the next level.
I think he just needs to be conscious if there's spectators in the crowd to maybe not. That's an internal house joke stuff. Like maybe.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the only one who did Borat on the day was me in the mic in the sound check, but there was no one.
But there's no one in the theatre.
Yeah, sound check. There was no one.
Yeah, just gonna make sure people aren't in the theatre, because sure they want to be a part of it, but maybe it's not super professional.
They might not. Yeah,
we might move the sound check a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Okay, while we're talking about training, do you think programming for powerlifting is easier or harder than for bodybuilding? Do you have any hybrid athletes in a power lift in their growth phase, doing powerlifting in their growth phase? So is it easier to program for powerlifting than bodybuilding?
Yeah, it's and as a powerlifter, you ask me exactly. He loves powerlifting because it's so much easier. It's like I literally come in, I have like
3 lifts.
eight sets of like 2 or whatever,
Yeah.
and he's like, and then I go home.
Yeah, and
I
these
eat
are all
like a
like
rhinoceros. Yeah.
7 to 10 minute rest periods.
Yeah.
The only thing that is, it's probably easier to program. The only thing that's more difficult is managing the recoverability because of the loads. That's
Peaking someone's strength is probably a little bit more technical than bodybuilding programming.
Yeah,
Load
it probably
selection,
is in terms of and knowing when you want to pull back to try and peak at the right time. But it's like anything. If you talk about peaking an athlete, someone who's never peaked an athlete, we're talking about bodybuilding, to peak them aesthetically. Like, how do you do that? There's so many moving parts. Whereas for a powerlifter, it's really not that hard. You need to know where the limitations are, but you're also looking at recovery variables, how they're feeling. But with powerlifting, a lot of it's also
the data's the data. Like
but also neurally, like
Oh, yeah.
it's very systemically taxing. Someone can go in and they might have 3 heavy singles for a squat, but like their central nervous system's just absolutely fried. Like I've seen it here with Zach, where his workout, he's been here for 2 hours, and the amount of work he's done is not a lot, but he's squatting 300 kilos. That's a lot of weight, man. And say he's doing it in sleeves, if he's not in wraps or something like that. So I think you just need to knowing your athlete. But anyone who's like, I've never coached powerlifters, I can just jump in and do it. They're very, very different. Understanding training for strength versus, and also blending some power work in there. When you have your power days, you have speed days.
Yep.
So they're very, very different. But I think that you can blend them together. Like, I still incorporate, I guess you could say, some elements of powerlifting with top heavy sets of big hip hinges, like a stiff leg deadlift, and sometimes a deadlift, as well as a squat. But I don't barbell squat anymore because I'd use a hack squat. But then I wouldn't usually give, although sometimes I do powerlifters, they might spend, if it's a hypertrophy block, rather than doing lots of barbell back squats, they might move to a hack squat because for whatever reason, a lot of powerlifters just don't fare well on a leg press. And a lot of the time it's just because they get that rounding of the lumbar spine. So they're better off in a squat pattern. A hack squat, very completely different from a systemic fatigue perspective compared to an SSB or even just a normal back squat.
Yeah. Would you ever use it during a growth phase for a bodybuilder?
Powerlifting, never just maybe a power building, but otherwise there's just not sufficient volume. Yeah, like I don't think you're creating sufficient mechanical tension to warrant hypertrophy, and most powerlifters still have their version of hypertrophy is 8 to 10. Maybe there'll be some accessory work with leg extensions and things like that, but the difference with them is they're moving so much more load than what we are, but in reality they might only have 1 or 2 of those, and most powerlifters are not nutritionally conscious like they probably could be. You go to a powerlifting meet, and in between, old mate's just done a huge deadlift set. Oh, his flight's not for another hour, and he's eating, like, no word of a lie, like a bucket of chips and donuts and that. And you're like, he's going to shit his pants. And it does happen. I've seen someone shit themselves on the platform.
Have you really?
Yeah, 100%. I've had athletes in here squatting and being like, I just shat myself. Yeah. I'm like, make sure you throw him out outside. I don't want him in here. They'll leave him with Dundies in here. But that's what happens.
the Mudandi.
I think there's been more giggling on this fucking podcast.
But that's similar to, and it's also really common. And if you're a female and if you've ever peed yourself on a deadlift, that's also really normal as well. Like, a lot of women that have had babies, that pelvic control, just running or things like that, shouldn't be embarrassed about. It's something that happens.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot. For me, it's more, I see it more so with a sumo, and I've seen it happen at comps, and I've seen it happen. It's happened in one gym as well.
What about if
not great to clean up? But,
what if I was to soil myself on a jet staff flight? Would that be something that is common, or
do you want to end the podcast on that story or no?
It wasn't me.
You just brought it up.
Oh, we'll end the podcast on it.
Let's wrap it up. Tell the story.
Me and I caught a flight back from Bali, red eye from Bali, full to the house, just worst flight you could ever imagine. Had to change our flight. We were like row 30, the last row, and I was sitting next to this couple who looked a bit loose, wild, older couple, maybe mid-50s to mid-60s. And they just dosed up hard on sleeping pills and Valiums. And I could see her. She's taken a few out, given them to him. She had 3 or something. He had 1, and she just passed out within 20 minutes and shut her pants in the seat. And no word of a lie, everyone, we were vomiting so bad. Because she was unconscious, they moved her to.
So she's sitting in the aisle, and you're in the middle.
Me's on the window. I'm in the middle, and it's her next to me, and her husband on the other side of the aisle. So she's passed out. She shit herself in the seat. They've moved her to another seat, swapped seats for a safety thing, and literally just fucking pulled out this like black tarp. It looked like a fucking coroner's tarp. It's fucking
covered her while she passed out.
Just covered her.
Far out.
Yeah, it was fucking. Hence why it's.
And then they move someone from the front
So that's it.
to sit in her seat.
They obviously clean the seat up, and then
but they didn't tell that person you're now sitting on shit. Like, I fucking knew because I was still in the same seat.
Oh,
when you texted me,
was I? How bad was I? Bro, I can't explain to you guys what. Ask my wife. It was nasty. It was nasty.
Jetstar is the worst. Every time I fly on their planes, I'm like, I'm never doing that again. And after the weekend's flight as well, I'm like, I'm never doing it again. But even that,
maybe if there's any,
tarnished, I will never do this ever again.
Hey, if there's any airline staff, is that like the tarp thing? Like, is that a normal? Was that just a safety thing? Did she just think so bad? They're like, what the fuck do we do? Like, what was the process there? And is that just normal protocol? If someone shits themselves and passes out, do you just tarp them? Like, I want to know. I fucking need to know. Or was that just a quick thinking staff member? I need to fucking know, please.
All right, let's end it there.
Yeah, the shit.
How are you going to put
podcast.
this in on the Spotify where it comes up?
There's going to be
soiling yourself on an airplane.
Yeah, there's going to be
there's
going to be a dot point at the end.
Yeah, soiling yourself on the airplane. What is normal protocol? There you go.
Maybe just use the word defecation, so it's a little bit like more professional, you know.
Honestly, I've just got PTSD. The last few weeks of flying's been tough, hasn't it?
Yeah, we're nearly there. All right,
yeah, Lonnie's good.
Let's go to Lonnie.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.